Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, it's officially the offseason. The Super Bowl now behind us, and every NFL team can begin to focus on 2019. Of course, MJ, the Cardinals have been focused on 2019 for quite a while now.
Yeah, it gives a lot of teams hope. I mean, teams with multiple draft picks in certain rounds, or maybe have 8 to 10 picks, and then you get free agency, and not everyone has as much money as some of the teams in the top 5 or 10. But yeah, I mean, it's the NFL. We've seen teams go from worst to first. You know, obviously, you got some heavy hitters in both conferences, so you know, the main thing is show progress, show improvement, and have a much better record in this season.
Absolutely, and the work begins right now. Busy show on tap here on this Wednesday afternoon. Without further ado, let's take off on this Wednesday. Here's what's ahead on the show today. It's back. The Emmy award-winning docuseries Cardinals Flight Plan returns. Tim DeLaney joins us here in studio to talk about that. Plus, and this is big, a brand new podcast featuring Kliff Kingsbury. Speaking of the new head coach, we'll hear from Kingsbury on David Johnson. Fantasy football owners won't want to miss that. Also, the NFL 100 commercial spot is receiving a lot of attention. We'll take you behind the scenes and, of course, your questions via social media. But first, the news of the day, and with that, we turn to the head coach. Kingsbury has filled out his first ever NFL coaching staff. He and the Cardinals today announced the hiring of 7 assistants plus 5 returnees. Here are the new names that everyone needs to familiarize themselves with, and we'll just go in order here. Marcus Robertson is the defensive backs coach. James Saxon, who has long been reported to be the running backs coach, that is now official. Greg Williams, cornerbacks coach. Charlie Bullen, assistant linebackers coach. Peter Budovanec is the assistant wide receivers coach. Rob Grosso and Spencer Whipple, the defensive and offensive quality control coaches, respectively. The big names here, though, as I mentioned, Saxon as running backs and his history with not only his time with the Steelers, but the Vikings, the Lions. Huge, extensive experience and resume specifically at that running back position, which is certainly going to bode well for David Johnson.
Yeah, his 19 years experience at the running backs position starting in 2000. He was an 8-year playing career with the Chiefs, Dolphins, and Eagles. So you're bringing in a guy that has 19 years of experience. Now, granted, Kirby Wilson had like 22 years. Obviously, look at some of the previous running backs coaches. But listen, what Sexton has done with both Adrian Peterson, Le'Veon Bell, even throwing James Conner, David Johnson should be smiling right now, along with Kliff Kingsbury, knowing that he should be the bell cow in this offense.
Defensively, Marcus Robertson and Greg Williams coming over from the Denver Broncos, so already connection with Vance Joseph, who also has worked with Rob Grosso and Sean Kugler in Denver, and he's got a history with Bill Davis and Charlie Bullen, so a lot of connections within that Cardinals coaching staff. The names that have been retained, including a couple of the promotions, Chris Akoff is back. He was the assistant defensive line coach. He is now the defensive line coach. Randall McCray returns as assistant special teams coach. Buddy Morris, strength and conditioning. Vernon Stevens, his assistant. Cam Turner is now the offensive assistant and assistant quarterbacks coach. Those 5 names on the previous staff, and now with Kingsbury here in 2019.
You know, we got a chance to watch the first 20 minutes of practice, and Don Johnson, who was the D-line coach, he was number 1. Akoff was number 2, and you could just see the way he works with these guys when it comes to drills and technique, and so not a surprise that he was the holdover from the previous staff. Obviously, you ID guys as there, you watch them coach, and let's be honest, if they were able to stay healthy, probably more production from the D-line. Cam Turner is Ron Turner's son, obviously, his uncle's Norv Turner, so he comes from a football background. He's more of your analytics guy. Good to see him working with quarterbacks, and he was in the booth last year when it came to challenges and, you know, possibly reviews and everything else. So curious to see what his role is. But he's an up-and-comer, and the Cardinals are excited to retain him.
And, of course, don't forget the 8 coaches who had been previously announced, including defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, but the rest of the names, Tom Clements, Bill Davis, Sean Kugler, Brian Natkin, David Rye, Jeff Rogers, and Steve Hyden. The consistency with all of these names are the number as far as not only former head coaches, but former coordinators, former position coaches at the NFL level, which will certainly help Kingsbury, who doesn't have any former prior NFL coaching experience.
Yeah, and it's, listen, we're not here to talk about the past, but it's more experience than the previous staff had. And maybe because it was the last hire where this was the first hire, but obviously, Kliff was going to leave on Steve Keim and his connections around the league, but he did all the interviews, and, he's showing up at 4 a.m. working out. Anytime you walk by his office, he's watching film, so he's grinding, and you got to give him credit because it was a process, and you got to make sure you don't make the quick decision, you make the right decision.
Speaking of Kingsbury, his 20 coaches, he talked about his staff, specifically the makeup of the staff, yesterday.
You're getting to know your coaching staff as well, correct?
We are, yeah. We brought together an experienced group from kind of all over. We wanted to put together the best staff that we could, regardless of prior relationship, and I felt like we've done that. Steve did a great job helping me and being a good resource for me as we put this thing together, and really excited about it. Everybody's still getting to know each other, but working hard at the X's and O's and getting ready for free agency.
There's a lot of mixing and matching NFL experience, college experience on this staff. What's the common characteristic, would you say, that brings you all together, that you're looking for in guys?
Yeah, I think, complete and total buy-in to what we're doing and what we believe we can be out here. Not where it's been, but where it's going. And I think you can feel that when you come in this office. Everybody's excited to be here. There's guys who've come from very successful programs, have had great runs in the NFL, and they're all fired up to be here and be a part of the Cardinals organization.
Adrian Wilson sat right here in this studio, and he said one of the big takeaways for him, Steve Keim, Michael Bidwell, was that you're self-aware, that you're not afraid to ask questions. To what degree is that accurate? I mean, to what degree,
no doubt.
Right?
I don't know what I don't know, and I'm not afraid to admit that. And I think if you try to do that and try to act like you have it all figured out, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And so that's why I was excited to bring in so many years of NFL experience to bounce ideas off of and pick their brain and figure out the best way that we can do things around here.
By the way, that's from the new Kingsbury Chronicles podcast with Paul Calvisi and Lisa Matthews. Much more on that later on the show here on Cards Cover 2. But you hear Kingsbury talking broadly about his coaching staff, on guys that he can lean on. And more importantly, as you heard him say, he doesn't have all the answers. And now he can look and try to find those answers with these 20 coaches that are now part of his staff.
Yeah, I mean, not to rank guys, but I think obviously the hire of Vance Joseph, former head coach, defensive-minded guy. I talked to Mike Kliss in Denver today. He covers the Broncos, and I said, he wants to be a head coach again, so he's going to want to shine. I'm not saying he's the head coach of the defense. Obviously, the head coach of the team is Kliff Kingsbury. And then you look at Tom Clements and his wealth of knowledge and experience working with quarterbacks going back to Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And then he comes in here as your passing game coordinator. We talked about Sexton as the running backs coach, but really Kevin Kugler to me is the guy that it's going to be hit or miss because, that offensive line has to get a lot better, and that's got to be the focus going into the offseason. We talk about left guard and right tackle, depending on what they do when it comes to retaining some of their own players. But I think they put together a good staff. Now we're going to find out how they can coach these guys up. Coaching is really teaching, and you got guys in the locker room that want to be good. Now you hope that they want to be great.
Absolutely. The other item for the Cardinals this week is they also made a roster move. They made their first waiver claim and landed linebacker Tanner Vallejo, from the Browns. 24 years old, couple of years of experience, drafted by the Bills, played 13 games last season with the Browns, 6'1", 230, but more a special teams guy, 7 tackles last season on that side of the ball in 2018.
Yeah, and according to Ian Rappaport, a handful of teams, maybe up to 6, actually put claims in them, and that's the beauty on one end where you finish with the worst record in the league. Now, this is going to happen until going into Week 4 of the NFL season, so anybody that gets released that does not have 4 years or more in the NFL, they're going to be subject to the waiver wire, and the Cardinals could put claims on them, bring them in, give them a physical, see how they look in a few days, and if they don't like them, they can move on. But when we get to Week 4, it's going to be based on teams' records. Hopefully the Cardinals are not in that conversation, but this is really going to help. And if you just look over the last couple of years, Craig, the Cleveland Browns have done this. They've claimed guys, they've traded for guys, they've cut guys. So this is how you turn the bottom of the roster over.
You certainly don't want to be in this position as far as having that first spot, but
the reality is you are.
Yeah, and now you need to take advantage of that.
Exactly.
It is a benefit for a team that finishes with a 3-win season. You come around and now have the first choice of any player waived by any other team, and we saw that towards the end of last season when the Cardinals got Farrell Cooper and DJ Swearinger. They were the first to claim those players. And as you mentioned, Ian Rappaport reported that the Jets, Giants, Bengals, Vikings, Chargers all had interest, all in fact put in claims to try to land Vallejo. Cardinals, though, at number 1, claimed him and get him.
And again, they'll have that first option between now and week 4 of the NFL season. And the other thing is they're going to have the first pick in every round when it comes to the NFL draft. So you're going to get a lot of bites at the apple. Hopefully that apple is ripe.
Now, keep in mind, guys are waived, release for one reason or another. Some guys because it's salary cap.
Yes.
Other guys just need a change of scenery. Some are just injury or a different change of scenery. But there are reasons sometimes you don't get a benefit of someone getting released because it's a numbers crunch. We're paying you too much. We can't afford you anymore. You're still very good. And then you land with someone else.
Well, it's like going to I don't know if you ever go to a yard sale or a garage sale. You probably haven't done that in years.
It's been a while.
Okay, but
as a kid, yes.
You go in there and you're like, this is only X amount of dollars, and then it becomes like your treasure. I think George Carlin said that in one of his comedy stand-ups. I don't want to use the word trash. We're talking about a person here, but you never know. Somebody may be playing in the wrong system, and I'm telling you, teams around the league, they're aware of when guys are going to get cut just based on their contract. And Ricardo Allen yesterday, he got released by the Falcons. He was a really good player. They've been trying to trade him for 2 years now. He is not subject to waivers, and I don't see anybody picking him up. So the main thing is the Cardinals have already scouted over 300 free agents, and they also have a list of guys that they think will be released. Now it's a matter of money and how do they fit in the scheme.
It is a Wednesday edition of Cards Cover 2 as we come to you from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, and of course doing so in our Bose QC35s. Here still to come, we will talk about Kingsbury and what he had to say about David Johnson. Plus, the Bird Gang gets a chance to sound off using the hashtag Cards Cover 2, hashtag Cards Cover 2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show. But last offseason, this series documented among many newsworthy items in 2018, the end of Bruce Arians' tenure, the drafting of Josh Rosen, and Marcus Golden's rehab. That series was honored with an Emmy Award, and this offseason, Cardinals Flight Plan returns.
I never saw this coming from the Arizona Cardinals. Everybody that is in that locker room, everybody that is in the front office, it's soul-searching time.
It's been a lot of sleepless nights throughout the season, and it got worse and worse and worse.
At the end of the day, we're all held accountable for this.
Last year was tough.
Roller coaster.
You get nauseous a little bit.
Never spiked the ball before in my life. I was a little frustrated, so when I got in there, I kind of let it out.
There will be changes, I'm sure. To what degree, who that is, who knows?
We needed to get this right, and we needed to do something dramatic and bold. Is it a risk? Absolutely. But I think it's a risk worth taking.
The Cardinals are now hiring Kliff Kingsbury.
It's done.
As their head coach. It is done.
I came here to help this organization get to where we want to be, and that's winning championships.
He just devoted his whole life to football.
If I look back and I think to myself that you're the general manager with the #1 pick in the draft, I mean, it's embarrassing as hell. But I promise you in April, we're not going to feel that way.
Scouting is A to Z, how you treat people when nobody's looking. I mean, we're looking for everything.
You know, hopefully all the information that we gather will be a Cardinal decision at the end of the day.
Be a Cardinal.
Future's all about you, my man.
Hey, Allie!
Josh Rosen is incredibly talented, one of the most talented throwers you'll see.
What I
think he's very competitive. I do think he wants to be a great player.
It's a hell of a throw.
I feel like we've done this dance before.
We have.
Larry's coming back for his 16th season.
Larry Fitzgerald with a touchdown pass brings the house down. Shot out of a Chandler Jones.
Everyone knows that it's a lot of life in this building.
With the first pick, the Arizona Cardinals select
Well, the man behind the Cardinals Flight Plan series and our boss, Tim DeLaney, Vice President of Broadcasting and Digital Content, joining us here on Cards Cover 2. I know this is something that you're very proud of it from a year ago and the success, but now to have it for a second season and something that I think fans are now going to expect every offseason because it does give the fans something that they don't get in a lot of places, and that's access behind the scenes.
Yeah, let's hope that we don't have as many storylines next offseason as far as
certain storylines. How about that?
Yeah,
we can
okay.
have storylines, just some certain ones we can get rid of.
Yeah, it's the show's. It's fun to do, and our team of people that work on it do a great job. I think we all kind of honed that skill of kind of documentary storytelling when we did Amazon's All or Nothing in 2015. So, but we're always learning and always trying new things. But I think fans will enjoy watching episode 1 tomorrow.
It drops at 6 p.m. on Thursday. A number of different ways to watch: Facebook Watch, YouTube. It's 8 episodes, and you mentioned episode 1 titled "Sudden Change," which will detail the coaching change. But other ideas, you've got 7 other more to go as far as a hint of what's to come now throughout the next couple months.
Well, we already took a trip to the Senior Bowl with the scouting staff, and we focus on a scout many people know, Adrian Wilson, while we're down there in Mobile. He actually had a lot to do with the hiring process, so we'll get into that in episode 2. We'll, of course, be headed to the Combine. I think my favorite part of last season was our war room access during the draft. That was pretty neat to see how the trade went down and stuff like that.
Yep.
This year, I think it could either be really interesting in the war room or pretty boring because they might just know what they're going to do, and we're on the clock, and nothing even said as to who they're picking.
But I gotta think the phone's going to be ringing though.
Oh yeah,
just because. I
would
mean,
think so.
A lot of those conversations take place beforehand, but when you're on the clock and who's on the board will dictate if you're going to move down, and so it's going to be exciting just hearing those conversations and basically who's trying to move up if we have a quarterback kill it at the Combine.
Yep. And then, I expect that when off-season workouts start, we'll be able to mic up Coach Kingsbury and Josh Rosen and Vance Joseph and sort of get to know the guys' persona on the field. I hope before then we're able to kind of give fans a look at Coach Kingsbury's, personality off the field before then. So.
What's it like when you got to have that conversation with the head coach where, he's obviously been busy getting here at 4 a.m. every day about just access?
I mean, he's been great about it. He hasn't said yes to everything, but he's
you don't know unless you ask,
yeah,
right?
Exactly, and he's fine with that. He has no problem with me asking. No, I mean we asked if we could be in their first staff meeting, and he said he wants everyone to learn each other's name first before they.
That's fair.
Yeah, I agreed.
Now, when you see something, and obviously a lot of his stuff we don't see because you want to show us the highlights and what's actually happening, but when you see stuff and you, because a lot of times you're asking the questions, people don't realize you're on the other side of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know right away that that's going in the
I think so. Yeah,
documentary.
I think so.
When you
for
hear
sure.
something.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Yeah, I mean, Steve has a great bite about why Kliff was the guy. I mean, I think that'll actually be in episode 2, but because in episode 2 we're gonna get into Kliff's personality some more. We have his brother and dad, who was here for his press conference day. So I think we'll see a little bit about what he was like growing up and stuff like that. But I think Steve kind of summarized why the team is excited about Kliff. But yeah, I think for the most part, when you hear something or see something.
Talk yourself up, though. How many years have you been doing this, not just with the Cardinals? I mean, as far as in your position, not just the the Cardinals Flight Plan, but with the Cardinals and in the NFL specifically.
10 with the Cardinals, 3 with the Redskins, so 13 in the NFL. But this is my favorite part of the job, doing this kind of stuff.
I mentioned this on the Red Sea.
No offense to radio.
Of course, no. I mentioned this on the Red Sea Report on Tuesday, and we can have all kinds of ideas about trying to humanize players and coaches, but none of this gets off the ground if you don't have support from upstairs.
Yeah.
And team president Michael Bidwell, I think, is one of the few owners in any profession, not just the NFL, that has allowed that access, open up the doors, kind of see how things get done. You can't give them everything, but there's enough that fans are satisfied and even clamoring for more.
I know Michael recognizes the value in allowing fans, behind closed doors, and I think he probably recognizes that it's more important than ever now, after a season like we had, to let fans see what's going on, have confidence in the people that are in our leadership roles now and the new coaches and stuff. So I think he certainly sees the value in that. And I know he was very proud of All or Nothing, just about being able to show how this organization has gone from where they were even a decade ago to now, and how they're respected as a first-class organization.
Again, it's an 8-episode series. Episode 1, titled Sudden Change, drops tomorrow at 6. Here is a quick tease on that first episode.
Really excited to work with Coach Kingsbury. I've talked on the phone a couple times since he's been hired. Messaged a couple of the guys he's coached in the past at quarterback, and they all said he's an amazing coach. He's really smart and loves to work with the quarterbacks.
I want to get to know Josh, get to understand what makes him tick. I do think he wants to be a great player in this league.
As a quarterback, selfishly, couldn't ask for a better coach with a particular specialty than quarterbacks and offense. So I'm really excited to start to get back into the swing of things.
Again, the season premiere of Cardinals Flight Plan airs Thursday at 6. You don't need a Facebook account to watch. You can go to facebook.com/Cardinals Flight Plan. Also, youtube.com/AZ Cardinals. In addition to Cardinals Flight Plan, and another reason we wanted to have Tim DeLaney here with us on Cards Cover 2 is the fact, and we referenced it earlier, is the debut of Kingsbury Chronicle podcasts with co-hosts Lisa Matthews and Paul Calvisi, although Lisa called it Kicking It with Kliff, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess that's our nickname for the show.
All right, at debut,
to be honest,
already has a nickname.
To be honest, she came up with that name after we came up with Kingsbury Chronicle, and I was like, I like yours better, but we had already made the graphics.
Well, you talk about, and again, that's every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. live on Facebook, and then available afterwards on Facebook or azcardinals.com and YouTube. But you talk about access. There's another thing that I don't believe a previous head coach with the Arizona Cardinals has ever done, but 10, 15 minutes every other Tuesday to kind of get to know them, not so much X's and O's, but again, you humanize these people because all we see as fans is what happens on Sundays.
Yeah. And actually, so we're doing Coach Kingsbury every other week, and in the odd weeks, we're going to do a different assistant coach. So it'll continue through mid-June. Hopefully we'll introduce the whole staff as well as Kliff to our fans. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing, like you said, is how is it when you ask a coach for access? I asked him if he would do it, and he didn't bat an eye. He said, of course, yeah. So he was happy to do it, and I think he knows that it'd be good for him to connect with our fans before training camp gets here.
And you're opening it up to fans as well to ask questions.
Yes. You put me on the spot there. Am I supposed to say how?
Oh no. You
just
tweet the Facebook Live and or just
Facebook Live.
It gets tweeted out as well.
It'll be interactive. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Very well done.
I wore my Harry Potter vest for you guys today.
I was going to ask about that vest.
Yeah.
For those who are listening to the podcast, you can certainly go to azcardinals.com to actually watch and see what Mr. DeLaney is wearing.
Do you have that vest?
I do not have that vest. It is very nice, though.
Yeah. It's you need to be here for 5 years with the team to get one of these. So it's like a gold jacket.
Well, we got like 4+ years left.
Larry Fitzgerald's going to get a gold jacket, and 5 years you get a vest. Okay, I like that.
Well, you guys are doing a good job.
Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
I think this show is a good example of how the leadership with this team values our fans and giving them more and more content and access on a day-to-day basis, 365 days a year.
You mentioned the coaching staff at the end of yesterday's podcast. I believe Coach put Vance Joseph on the spot. So Joseph is scheduled to be on next Tuesday.
Week, yeah. I don't know if he knows that yet.
Yeah, exactly. But, hey, when the head coach mentions your name, then it's done.
Exactly.
But as I said, it's not so much all football related, but you get to know people, the person. You'll find out if you go back and watch the debut of Kingsbury Chronicle podcast. You can find out how he found himself at the Bird's Nest during the Waste Management Phoenix Open.
Yeah, and he was on stage and doing a little singing, or at least lip singing. Now, yesterday you wanted to listen to this, Tim. He wanted to take credit yesterday for Kingsbury when Michael went at the helicopter, and you guys got the video of him coming off the helicopter, and supposedly I was talking at the time, or maybe we were talking about.
Bertrand Berry was talking.
Bertrand was talking about the coaching search, and Kingsbury and Michael Bidwell walked through here. So he wants to take credit for the hire.
Well,
Small percentage.
And did you guys already tell the story, or
we talked about on the Red Sea Report, but this was a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday morning. Red Sea Report airs at 11. And keep in mind all the reports about the coaching search and where guys are. And I don't know, earlier that morning, Kingsbury's in New York talking with the Jets.
Reportedly still there.
Well, the helicopter lands at about 10:40. Right before our show, and there they come on. I was like, I thought he was supposed to be in New York. Boy, that is a quick flight. And then next thing you know, he's watching the show, and that's why I'm taking, but we collectively, just a small
Well,
percentage.
I think Michael also winked at our producer, Jim Omohundro, and said, we weren't here, or you didn't see us, or something like that.
Yeah.
I told him so you could just bring him in studio. I don't mind if people just want to walk right in.
Hey,
just take
before-
a seat and go,
That'd have been good.
Oh, that would have been exclusive, and you would have started asking questions, and Steve Kime would have been sitting out the door going, I'm waiting, guys.
Yeah, exactly. For his first stop, just walk right into the radio studio.
Cards cover 2.
So actually, I was at the Waste Management Phoenix Open in our Cardinals tent on 18, and Kliff came in for a while and visited with some of the people that were there as guests of the Cardinals. It was pretty neat. He took his time and met everybody and seemed happy to be there.
He mentioned yesterday that he wants to go there every year. I'm like, no, we're going to be busy during Super Bowl week.
Yeah. All right. Good. Yeah. We need to correct him on that one. Yeah.
He's still learning the calendar as far as the
Right,
NFL
but
is
his first time, he really liked
Well,
it.
he can visit in 2023 when we're hosting the
That's
Super
right.
Bowl. He'll
Double
have time to
duty. He'll have his press conference on Friday. He'll head out to the Open.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would work.
I mean, the Cardinals have a corporate tent out there every year.
I think he would like that. That would work very well. Tim, appreciate a couple of minutes here.
Thank you, Tim.
As
Good
far
job.
as
It was fun.
Cardinals Flight Plan, and as we say goodbye to Tim once again about Kingsbury Chronicle podcast. Here's how Kingsbury watched the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I just watched it in my hotel this year. I had some stuff to do with the office, so just went in and ordered food and watched it.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not even unpacked yet.
I'm not unpacked. I'm still at the hotel and trying to figure it out one day at a time.
So you don't know, for example, what the movers broke, because they always break something.
Yeah.
So you have no idea.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I'm just trying to, whatever I have in my room is what I have at this point.
Again, Kingsbury Chronicle podcast, 3 p.m. on Tuesdays. And then again, don't forget the season premiere of Cardinals Flight Plan Thursday at 6 p.m. Certainly a lot of access for fans, and it's going to be a busy offseason. We said that, MJ, even before 2018 ended, was on how defining this offseason has the potential to be as far as where this organization wants to be, and that is back in the playoffs and back competing for the opportunity to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and how thrilled are we that the Cardinals drafted a quarterback last year? Because, listen, every year you're going to have 3 or 4 quarterbacks drafted. Sometimes you get overdrafted because teams are so desperate, and obviously you got to wait for free agency. That starts first. But it would have been a busy offseason regardless if they didn't make a coaching switch. But now it even makes it greaters the workload because, the fact that they got Josh last year, and, obviously they have a ton of cap space and high draft picks, but now it's even going to be more of a workload just from a standpoint of putting the staff together. We could check that box now. And then now it's a matter of the scouts checking out the free agents, and they've graded over 300 guys. So exciting times if this team's going to want to show improvement in the win-loss column next year.
Exciting and busy. And part of the discussion in yesterday's debut Kingsbury Chronicle podcast included a fan's question. Here's the question: how will David Johnson be used in Kingsbury's offense? Here's the answer.
As many ways as we can. I think that's kind of the standard answer. He's such a tremendous talent, whether it's running the football, catching the ball, the screen game. We got to get him his touches and get him going and make him comfortable in what we do. And so he's going to have a major role. There's no doubt. He'll get it all sorts of ways, and we got to be creative in how we get him the ball.
Best answer he could have given. And David Johnson's certainly going to love that answer, but fans as well, because, and we know what happened last season, David Johnson wasn't utilized a lot. Ball was not in his hands enough, and we saw what happened with this offense. It finished dead last in nearly every major statistical category. Johnson needs that football.
Well, I got to assume he went back to the 2016 film, the way that Bruce Arians was able to use him, and we know that he was, close to 2,000 yards all-purpose. He had 20 touchdowns, 16 rushing, 4 receiving. So if you want to go back and see the upside and the versatility of David Johnson, you go back to the 2016 film.
Well, he was an All-Pro, made it to the Pro Bowl, but last season almost got 1,000 rushing yards, had 446 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, but his yards per carry and yards per catch were both career lows. Now, a lot of that you can blame on the offensive coordinator at the time, the struggles at the offensive line, so it all played a factor. But I think we're all in agreement that sometimes you do need to force it, and you do need to figure out ways, different ways, adjust in order to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers.
Yeah, listen, I mean, it's not – I mean, I know that it's a passing league, but you watch the postseason, look at Sony Michel, and you don't see Bill Belichick usually go out in the first round and draft a running back. Usually they get him in free agency. The James Whites of the world, Deion Lewis, they've got Corey Dillon there. So, yeah, I mean, even though he was a third-round pick, I mean, listen, the main thing is David Johnson didn't have a single injury last year, so he's healthy. That's not an issue. Hopefully we see the stiff arm again, but he's got to be the bell cow in the offense. I mean, he's got to get it 25 to 28 times. I'm looking at 1,500 to 1,800 yards, and I think it's realistic.
And split more as a wide receiver, even if it's a decoy. And I don't know if you saw this stat, but I want to give credit to Ian Haddott's FantasyLabs.com. Johnson in 2018 lined up as a wide receiver only 7% of the time.
Mistake.
By comparison, and this is what really stands out, that number was 20% in 2016 when he, 1, was healthy, and 2, had an all-pro season.
And the Cardinals rewarded him. And listen, I'm not going to, he had some mental errors and maybe he was a little hard on himself. And I was told maybe mid-season that he was correcting those. So now just go out there and play football. I mean, he's going to be excited about his role. And if this team's going to be successful, he's going to have to lead that. And you talk to Josh Rosen, you talk to Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, they all say the same thing. There's enough targets to go around, but he's got to be the bell cow.
It's got to be David Johnson. It's got to be Larry Fitzgerald. It's got to be Christian Kirk. You can throw in Chase Edmonds, or else they might add Farrell Cooper, who's got that speed. Just figure out a way, and you keep talking about as far as that ball getting out of Rosen's hands quickly and within the first 5 to 7 yards, because Rosen doesn't need to throw deep. Yeah, you need that outlet because you want to keep defenses honest, but sometimes you just need that short, safe throw to become a big-time play.
Well, we've watched Christian Kirk take it from the bubble screen and go off to the races. We watched him in the first play of the game against the 49ers throw a 75-yard touchdown. So there's ways to get these guys the ball. Now, if you're able to get rid of it quickly within the 5 to 7 yards of the line of scrimmage, now you're looking at yards after catch, yards after contact. And we know David Johnson and a couple of these other guys can break tackles.
And we know what Kingsbury did in college, that air raid offense. But as he's been quick to point out, that is not really what he does, first of all, and what he expects to do at the NFL level. His offense overall, he addressed that on the debut episode of the Kingsbury Chronicle podcast.
I'm big on adapting to our personnel. We want to do what we do well based on our personnel. I've never been one that's going to just run, hey, this is what we're going to run no matter what. That hasn't worked for me. So whatever we have offensively and the skill we have and the players we have, let's make it fit them. And I think that's something we've done in the past and hope to continue to do at this level.
There's that word again, adapt.
Mesh, too.
Yes.
He's there, but talking about meshing.
And
listen, the air raid will have some concept, but it's really pro concept with the RPOs. So it's not so much the air raid, but it's just the RPOs and the fact that you have to get rid of the football. And that's what they did with Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, even Case Keenum at the time when they all were playing for Kliff Kingsbury, whether it was at Houston or Texas Tech.
And I would think that would be the case as well on the defensive side of the ball with Vance Joseph, who's got familiarity as far as both the 4-3 and 3-4. And I know a lot of people, depending on who you talk to, don't like to talk about how that front seven looks because everyone now is kind of going with that 5 or 6 DB look. So what you do up front can be different or interchangeable, but it's about putting guys in position. And I think too many guys were out of position and maybe just not comfortable in what they were being asked to do. And there needs to be communication, because if you're not comfortable in what you're doing, you need to tell someone about that. So either they, one, put you in a better spot, or two, find someone else who can do what they want you to do.
Yeah, and again, everyone talks about coaching, and I think coaching matters. Just watch a Super Bowl, but they're really teachers. And when you're playing faster and you're not thinking, you can be a lot better player, whether it's on or off the field. But when I mean off the field, preparation, knowing what your assignments are, knowing your job, stay in your lane, do your job, let the other guys come in and clean it up.
Cards Cover 2 broadcasting from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center here on this Wednesday afternoon, and doing so in our Bose QC35s. Still to come here on this afternoon, we'll hear from the Bird Gang using the hashtag Cards Cover 2. Hashtag Cards to Cover 2, your questions via social media. But first, we talked about this a couple of times last week leading into the Super Bowl, and that was the 100th season of the National Football League and all that is planned in 2019 to help celebrate. Kicking off that celebration, the NFL got some of the greatest to ever play the game together for a commercial spot. We gave you a couple of glimpses, some snippets of that commercial leading into the Super Bowl. Right now, here's that entire 2-minute ad.
Welcome to the 100th season of the National Football League. Tonight is not about the league. What's up, Juju? It's about football. It's about the players, the fans, the moments, and everything else that makes you say,
oh boy.
Fumble! Oh! Oh! Come on! 1, 2, let's go!
Joe! No can do, cowboy.
Here we go now!
Come on, TG.
Everybody reach.
Damn, B. Y'all know I have more yards than they do. You still got it. That hurt. Boy, this is a great party.
Get out there, old man.
Hold these.
Hey, come on now.
Yes.
He's open.
Russ?
First down.
I got you, Tony.
That's a cake.
Can I have the ball, please?
You want this?
Yeah.
Come and get it.
You've got to watch that a couple of times to pick out every single player in that, but it is so well done. And when they sent the press release out, MJ, they listed 19 Hall of Famers, a total of 53 Super Bowl rings. I think that now needs to be updated because Ed Reed is in there. He's now a Hall of Famer. And, of course, Tom Brady's in there. He's got another Super Bowl ring. So you're talking about 20 Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers in there as well. 54 Super Bowl rings, but very, very well done. Peter Berg of Friday Night Lights directed the commercial. Much of it was shot in Los Angeles, although the Brady and Baker Mayfield spot I read was actually done in New England because sometimes, the season kind of gets in the way of some of that stuff. But very, very well done. Again, it's worth a repeat watch over and over again just because the lines, the plays, and just the number of players together in one room.
Yeah, and, we thought Larry was going to catch the ball.
He did not.
The immaculate reception.
Didn't even get a hand on it. Didn't look like, you know what? But I'll give him credit because you pointed this out. He wore a white tuxedo to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they asked him to wear that.
I think that we need to figure that out. Was that his choice to stand out, or was it suggested?
Well, and the NFL really is trying to promote the Hunter season coming up. And, Larry wants to be on that all-century team, and I think he's got a good chance if they keep 8 receivers. I think he's in the top 5 or 6 right now. So, and then the female was Sam Gordon. She was playing maybe at 5 or 6 years old. She was playing football, and you'd see some of these touchdown runs, and looks like Roger Goodell still has her in there, and she's really promoting women's football. So it was nice to see her, even though she never played in the NFL.
Well, Sarah Thomas as well.
Referee.
So just a lot of different collections of people. And I was reading earlier today, they asked Troy Aikman to be involved in that commercial spot, and he turned it down because of a scheduling quirk. And then I don't think he realized, and he recognized this after the fact, after the Super Bowl commercial spot was played. He did recognize just the magnitude and the fact that this is going to be played over and over again. And he admitted, I should have accepted.
Yeah, because Joe Montana, he didn't want to throw the ball to Michael Irvin. He wanted to throw it to Jerry Rice.
Of course. You would expect, though, with...
How about Marshawn Lynch really starting it?
He stole the show. Well, he's the troublemaker.
Did you see how he was dressed? Just all in black.
There was, and then Singletary had the line.
He had the eyes.
And the eyes, too. But everyone kind of played...
Jim Brown.
What we're known for.
This is quite
on their
the party.
Yeah. It's certainly very well done.
That's why it was done in L.A. and by somebody that was in charge of writing Friday Night Lights.
Absolutely. And, of course, there were outtakes, which the NFL was so gladly pleased to release earlier this week.
Welcome to the 100th season of the National Football League.
I have this one, baby.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
Let's go, let's get some.
I'm going in. That's gonna be a first.
Hey, not bad.
Well, mine can.
What's your role in it?
I have to throw lob pass so you can catch. They said you can't catch. My role is to trip you up prime time.
I love that.
Ninja's here.
Who's Ninja?
He's huge. He's a video game guy.
Well, that ain't a ninja. A ninja's a warrior.
I don't think you're a football player. I just had to
Pass him! Pass him! Oh, Larry, this is gonna be sweet. That was a sweet cake. That was a clip!
Come and get it.
Looked like they had a lot of fun.
Oh,
I can't pop this mother.
I didn't watch every commercial, but I think that was one of the best commercials. Maybe I'm biased because I'm an NFL fan.
Well, if you read about, they analyzed the commercial, that was one of the highest rated, if not the highest rated commercial spot. And for some, it was better than the actual game itself. I disagree with that, but yeah, many people.
Yeah, because people like points. That was old school football.
Absolutely.
Get over it.
All right, let's hear from the Bird Gang as they sound off here on this Wednesday afternoon. Your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show here on this Wednesday afternoon. We'll begin with Twitter, and this user, well, it's not just a user, it's at Cardinals_31. It's our good friend David Johnson. It's not David Johnson, but
it's his burner account.
We like
allegedly.
We appreciate the question. We saw in the Super Bowl that defense still wins championships. With that in mind, do you think the Cardinals will invest more in defense or offense in free agency?
Well, they have needs on both sides of the ball. When you look at defense, you obviously got to get a defensive line. Hopefully Marcus Golden returns and Rodney Gunter and a healthy Robert Nkemdiche maybe midseason. Inside linebacker, corner opposite of Patrick Peterson. Then you look at the other side of the ball. You definitely need some weapons on the outside, including wide receiver, tight end. But the most important thing is the offensive line. So I think it's going to be a mixture of both. We'll have to wait and see what they do in free agency in March. And then when the draft comes up in late April, that's when you fill some other needs.
I think I don't want to say more money because you don't know free agency or the draft, but I think that offensive line certainly is going to get a lot of attention.
Both.
And both free agency and the draft, absolutely. Another user on Twitter wants to know, do you think the Cardinals are going to get N'Keal Harry, the ASU wide receiver?
Well, if he drops to the second round, I think he'd be a viable option. Now, it remains to be seen if the Cardinals decide to move down, because I do think they're open for business, is that how far do you go down, and then do you pick up an extra first-round pick? And the Raiders come to mind. Now, the Packers have 2 first-round picks. I think they're going to keep them. They probably get a defensive tackle at number 11, and I've seen Harry go to the Packers late. But if he's there at 33, I think, you're talking about a plug-and-play guy. Now, everyone's going to talk about his 40 time, but he's a gritty player. He's really good on the 50-50 balls. He'll improve in his route running. Hopefully he improves in his 40 time. But the main thing is he could be a downfield threat for you. So if he's there, I think he'd be an option. Obviously, tight end is another position. Maybe the Cardinals will address the offensive line if they don't do it in the first round.
Well, when you talk about 40 time, just pay attention to Christian Kirk. There's a difference between running a straight line with no one in your way versus getting off the line of scrimmage trying to get around a defender.
Well, I think a prime example, and I'm glad you brought that up, his punt return in the USC game. I mean, he showed some speed. He got I think it was a 90-some-odd yard punt return for a touchdown. He's going down the sidelines, and guys are trying to catch him from a different angle, and they weren't able to get him. So, again, he's gritty. He's a tough guy, and he can make catches in traffic, and that's something his team needs if Larry Fitzgerald's not going to play forever.
He's not?
Well, we know he's coming back for this year, so let's just focus on that.
Back to your questions. Let's move to Instagram. User wants to know, what has been the best Cardinals coaching hire in your opinion?
Well, obviously, you look at the head coach just because he's going to come in and bring an innovative offense, and he's smart. But if you want to go 1B and 1C, I would say Vance Joseph, because he got a defensive-minded background, a former head coach. And then I would say Sean Kugler.
Yep.
But they've hired a quality staff. And so, but if I had a rank besides the head coach, go with the coordinator. Tom Clements should be in that conversation, but I think the offensive line coach is something they've been waiting for and wanted for a long, long time.
And it'll be interesting to see what James Saxon does with David Johnson getting his hands on another quality running back.
True.
He's worked with Adrian Peterson. He's worked with Le'Veon Bell. He's worked with some of the best.
He even got James Conner up to speed this year before he got hurt.
It's unbelievable. And then you talk about what Kugler did in Denver with Phillip Lindsay. Undrafted rookie free agent.
Over 1,000 yards.
And he makes the Pro Bowl. So just those two combined certainly should help. And this
Definitely.
is all right now on paper. We don't know until we see it on the field. But at least right now it looks very, very good.
Well, I mean, it comes down to players and execution. Correct. But, again, coaching is teaching. And all these guys got a wealth of knowledge, and hopefully they can spread it to some of these young guys.
Appreciate the Bird Gang sounding off here on this Wednesday afternoon. Again, using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show. And we'll do it again on Friday afternoon. Keep them coming via Twitter or Instagram. And with that, that is going to wrap up this edition of Cards Cover 2. Special thanks to those behind the scenes, Tim DeLaney, Jim Omahundro, Devin Henry, and Brandon Natus. By the way, welcome back, Omo. You were missed.
Proud father.
Although, as we determined here on Cards Cover 2, he was never really gone because he would text, email, but a brand new daddy.
He is, and everyone's doing well.
Absolutely. So congratulations to the Omahundro family. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. We'll talk to you on Friday here on Cards Cover 2.